Welcome to Throw and Hit tutorial number 2. What we want to do in this tutorial is put in a sprite for fire. So when the sprite is clicked, it's going to fire the banana, a reset button that brings all of our variables back to a common point, and the reset button also brings the bananas back to a common point, and finally a costume change for, in this case, the dinosaur. You see the arm goes up when the banana is thrown. So this Scratch game that we have over here, or this animation that we have, is the exact point we left off at for Scratch number 1, or Throw and Hit number 1. So we will pick it up from right here. So we were going to make another sprite that we're going to have on here that's going to be for firing the basketball rather than hitting the green flag. I actually clicked to choose a sprite, but I want to click to paint. So we're going to make one very similar to what I made before. Obviously, if you want to have one that's a different shape, a different size than this, I encourage you to, and not copy everything that we're doing here. So I'm going to take away my outline, which we don't have. We'll make it a nice red color for a red fire button. Put it in the middle, and we'll have some text to say fire. I'm going to make the fill on that white. That way it'll show up on our red background. So there we have fire. We'll put it over here on this side. Now going into our code, we're going to say that when this sprite is clicked, we're just going to broadcast a message saying fire. This is actually a good time to introduce the grand vision of this game, which will be to have two cats throwing basketballs at each other. So we'll say fire left. The reason I have fire left is because there's going to be a cat on the right, and there's going to have to be two messages, fire left, fire right. When we eventually get to this point right here, we're going to have two of them that are going to be launching at each other. So we want to have one for each. So under fire left, right now it's when the green flag is clicked, and we want it to be when the sprite is clicked. So for broadcasting fire left, we can now go into the basketball, and anywhere we have the green flag, we can now change it to say, when I receive fire L, then start the sequence of events. Make sure I got everything. All right. I don't want to change this one because that's my reset. We're actually going to be looking at that one in a minute when we make our other sprite up here for reset. But instead of now checking the green flag, when I check the sprite, it's going to be launching my basketball. All right, so looking into the reset button up here, rather than build this whole thing again like I did before, I can simply click on it and duplicate it. We'll bring this up to the top, and notice when I click that, it's sending the same message, but we don't want it to say fire L. We're going to have it do something different. We're going to have it broadcast the message reset. And if it's going to be a reset button, we're probably going to want to change the text on it to say reset. A little more centered so it looks perfect. When the sprite is clicked, broadcast reset. What that's going to do is we want to have, instead of when the R key is pressed, we're going to say, when I receive reset. This is going to change gravity back to 0. It's going to have this basketball go back to the point where it was before. I'm going to add in some other things on here, which would be to change the Y velocity and X velocity back to the middle, depending on where they were before. It doesn't matter if I'm going to put it underneath where I received the message or underneath here. I could actually just put them underneath this. So I can say set the X velocity to 50 and set the Y velocity to 50 as well. Along the lines of what we said before, it may be a good time to look into changing the names of X and Y velocity to X velocity left and Y velocity left because we're going to have 2 more of them over here for the other cat that's throwing back at this one. All right, final part of this tutorial will be to change the costume on the cat. So when this thing is thrown or when it's fired, the arms move to make it look a little bit more realistic. We can test this out too, which it is working. All right, we're going back to 50 here. Okay, so in the cat, we're going to be looking into the different costumes. There are other, or I think there's one more costume in here when we first started. If we want to delete that, you can. You can actually restore the costumes too if you go into edit. I believe it will bring some of the regular settings back up that were in here from before. So I'm going to make it, because this basketball looks like it's being tossed underhand, I'm going to change this cat's hand. We're actually going to do 2 more costumes for a total of 3, and we'll have the hand go down for the first costume, and then up for the second, and then we'll switch back to regular for the last. So we're going to duplicate this thing twice. And we'll change this to cat throw 1. That's going to bother me. We'll make it a lowercase. And this one is going to be cat throw 2. So for cat throw 1, we're going to have the, I'm in text mode right now, which I don't want to be. We're going to have this arm come down a little bit lower to here, actually a little bit big. Then for the next part, we're going to have it move up a little bit. I think I jumped the gun a little bit. I want to get that arm the same size, so we're just going to duplicate this from before. So cat throw 1, look at that, it already made it the name I want it to be, which is cat throw 2. And that is have our arm up a little bit higher. So in our code, we can now use the same message from fire before and say, when I receive fire left, we're going to do some costume changes in here. So we can go to looks and we can say switch costume to, I believe cat throw 1 is first. We'll wait a little while, otherwise you won't see it. Control. We're going to have to play around with these numbers, but we'll start off with 0.5 for right now, and then we're just going to keep on doing that. So we'll change to cat throw number 2, and then I'm going to want to go back to my regular cat costume at the end. So cat throw 1, cat throw 2, and we'll see how it goes. And you can see the arm moving. And like I mentioned before, we're going to have to change around these times a little bit. I won't spend up too much time doing that now. I'll let you get to work, but we may want to make this a little more calibrated to look more like it's the proper arm motion for how this ball is being thrown. So we'll let you get to it now. Please leave any comments, suggestions, and hopefully this helps with the next steps of the project.